Debora Plunkett is a SIG principal, and we're very proud of that. Also, former director of information assurance at NSA. And she's going to continue this conversation right on election security and disinformation with Gary Korn, who is director of technology and security program at the American University, also former Cyber Command experience as well. And Michael Kaiser, who's a CEO of an organization called Defending Digital Campaigns. I can't think of better hands to turn this over to. So Debora, thank you. Take it away.
Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you so much. It's really exciting for me to be able to participate in this topic that I have been passionate about since 2017, and I couldn't be more honored than to have Gary and Michael join me for this conversation about election security and disinformation, particularly this year, as we're looking at a general election right in front of us, and so much discussion around will it be a safe election? You know, can we trust what will be coming before us? And as the previous panel so wonderfully already hit hard on, the role of AI and what we might expect from a disinformation perspective. So why don't we get started? The kickoff question, this is a softball question for both Gary and Michael, is, and we have to start by saying this: are elections more secure today than they were 4 years ago, as we are in an election year? And Gary, how about you kick us off?
Sure, thank you. It's great to be here. It's a bit of a challenge to follow that prior group, and they've delved into a lot of these issues already, and with tremendous expertise and insight. I agree absolutely. I think it was Sue Gordon who said the where we were in 2016 and where we are today in terms of certainly at the federal government level and the level of organization, focus, coordination, and collaboration is light years different. And when General Nakasone says we will have the most secure election that we've had, I give that tremendous weight. When Jen Easterly says that, I give that tremendous weight. So, I think in many ways, yes, we are in a much better place than we've been in the past. That's the glass half full. The glass half empty is the threats don't relent, and they're changing and evolving. And I would say that in large measure, a lot of that collaboration and coordination and focus has been on the cyber security side of securing elections, and we have other components to this, and that's the discussion today. The malign influence disinformation space is incredibly difficult, and I would say it's just an observation, having been involved in this stuff at some level, playing a bit role, but watching this over time, it just sort of strikes me that we have been so focused on the cyber security, cyber effects side of the house for the last 20 plus years, we almost completely forgot about the influence side. And that is, far more pre-existent. It's just that it's now on steroids because of the technologies that are available. And as the discussion just prior, got into, add in artificial intelligence as a hyper accelerant of this. And it's a monumental challenge. It's a monumental challenge to pierce through what is truth, what is reliable information, what is accurate, and manage that influence piece in the election space. So I'll stop there.
That's great. And Gary, while you're talking, since we've got you, can you just give a couple of lines on what your involvement is currently in this space, so we can have some context for your comments?
Yeah, I mean, currently it's more from the academia side of it. So I run this program at the Washington College of Law, the Technology Law and Security Program, and I'm still sort of tied in and connected in and paying attention to some things that are going on. But it's looking at, for me, I still kind of look at what I call the cyber and information conflict space, more from a legal perspective, like what are the legal policy issues involved. And at my time at Cyber Command as the senior lawyer there, it ran the gamut of 2016 into 2018, the stand up of the Russia small group, and a lot of the posturing, protect that election and the lessons learned and moving forward into, 2019 when I retired.
Perfect, thank you. So Michael, same question. Are we more secure today than we were 4 years ago?
Yeah, so I like Gary, I'll, instead of saying half full, half empty, I'll just say yes and no, right? In many ways, we are much better secure. I think I've been working in cybersecurity since 2008. The platforms get more secure all the time. We improve on a lot of the basic security. Getting people away from bad password usage. Getting security to people's hands. Now we have pass keys coming in. Passwordless. Security coming on to the forefront right at the edge of this campaign, which is really phenomenal, important stuff that make things more secure. On the other hand, the no part is, and I think, Gary, and I think some of the other guests, earlier have alluded to this a lot, the technology is rapidly changing, and security and the new technology go hand in hand. The more new technology is, the harder the challenge is to secure it. I think, sure, when we look at things like the information space, Photoshop's been around for a long time. Dirty tricks in American politics, not new, been around for a long time. But this technology, this acceleration, the trajectory that this is on, and it's more than just pictures, right? It's more than just creating videos. It's more than, we're really focused on the generative AI, part of this, but it's the ability to crunch data, to target, to do things in different kinds of ways that are at scale and widely available at the same time, which is kind of a dangerous combination in my mind.
Super, thanks. And Michael, just a couple words on what your interest is and involvement is in this area.
Well, defending digital campaigns, and Debbie knows this because she founded the organization. So she's our inspiration for a lot of what I'm going to talk about, what we do today. But we are a nonprofit organization with a federal election commission advisory opinion that allows us to provide cybersecurity services, security keys, website protection on social, free to federal campaigns and in some states as well, that they can take from us and don't have to report as a contribution. So it allows them to adopt cybersecurity without spending any money, and also free from any limits about how much it might cost. Is that too much money? We're over the limit. They can do that, and it's really a way to take the friction out of adoption of security. And we also provide onboarding support, right? So we help them get their products up and running.
So that's a good place to launch off. Thank you both, because when we look at and think about the roles that are involved in successfully executing an election, everyone immediately sort of points to the states, rightfully so. It's their responsibility to conduct the elections. But there are other entities across our stratosphere that have responsibilities. So here's my question to you. It's pretty clear what the role of government is. Does private sector have a role in securing elections? Gary?
I would say they have, I think we all have a responsibility in ensuring that our elections are secure and reliable. I think it starts from, unfortunately, it's an area where we are falling short, but every individual citizen in critical thinking and engaging with the information, not just seeking information that makes me more secure in my opinions, but that I'm, as I said, engaging with critically. I think media, traditional media, has an absolute role and responsibility, and doing the job and the hard work and the heavy lifting of verifying information, right? Presenting information that, in accurate ways and so on. Social media platforms, they've been struggling with the whole area of content moderation since their inception. And I don't know that they've got it figured out yet. There's some hard work that's done. There's some good sides to it, but so, there's layers of responsibility to build in resilience, to build in education, right? Awareness by the citizenry across the board, and there's obviously the cybersecurity side of this as well for the infrastructure, and much of it is held in the private sector. They do have a responsibility, I would say, to be part of this.
So Gary, just to continue on this for a minute. So in the area of the traditional media, can you talk a little bit about what responsibilities specifically they have, and give your assessment of how well they're doing, and making sure they're monitoring the information that's flowing on the networks and infrastructures that they own and operate.
Yeah, I mean, I want to, you know, I'll caveat this and be cautious because I'm not part of traditional media. I'm not a reporter, right? There's ethical standards there. There's professionalism, et cetera. I think though that we have all sort of sat back and witnessed a change in the media landscape over the last 40 to 50 years, and just sort of the way it operates, the speed to, you know, the flash to bang of you know, some report and getting information out. Those of us in government know the first reports are never accurate, right? So that doesn't really work well when you are on a 24-hour news cycle and you're competing for market space. So I mean, I just think there's a lot of things that we've seen in the way that our media ecosystem has evolved that are not healthy and that are, you know, at times contributing to the problem. And then there's I think a recognized and documented feedback loop that's starting to happen with the social media side of the house and what's driving what in terms of the information landscape.
Which is really where the large proportion of population is getting, it appears, at least based on surveys, is getting their news is from the social media, which presents its own challenges. So Michael, same question. What's the role of private sector in securing, or is there a role for private sector in securing our elections?
Yeah, you know, I think the classic cybersecurity model works here. Everybody has to do their part. You know, industry has to secure their platforms. They have to, you know, make sure that they are putting the time and energy into making sure that the platforms that all our democracy rests on are secure, whether it's the, you know, the voting systems themselves, the platforms that campaigns use to manage their campaigns, the third parties that they interact with in order to build all these things have to be secure. They have to do their part. They have to collaborate where they can between themselves, and there's a lot of collaboration on the industry side around some of these issues. You know, there was a accord that many of the tech companies signed in Munich about trying to take down some of this deceptive information. There's work on the, you know, CTPA, which is on the content credentialing, which is a collaborative effort on industry to make tools available to campaigns, organizations, you know, secretaries of state to verify the information and make sure that people can get access to the correct things and know it's correct. So they play a huge role in all of this because they are the provider of the technology that people are using, both for good and bad. So they must make sure that they're doing their role, but they're not the only player here. And I agree that everybody plays a role, from, you know, government, industry, working in collaboration, right down to the end user who, you know, is the people who get to cast their vote, you know, make their choice, absorb information in order to make their choice. They play a huge role at the end of the day.
So the previous panel did a great job in talking about AI and influence ops. So I'm going to take a slightly different path, still talking about AI and influence ops, but I'd like to ask, you know, there's a lot of discussion about all the bad things that could and very well could happen and would happen during an election with regard to the use of AI to dissuade, persuade, you know, publish untrue information. Is there anything positive that can come out of AI, specifically as it relates to the elections? Either of you?
I mean, sure. I mean, I think, you know, I can only speak to the campaign space, and I can't really speak, you know, as much to the infrastructure space. And I think there probably are some things over there. But I mean, on the campaign space, for sure. I mean, I think there are a lot of these tools add productivity. You know, I think we're still in our infancy in many ways. I mean, some of the technology we see emerging into the campaign space or using AI include, you know, some relatively simple things like being able to, you know, write better fundraising emails by training you know, AI to look at the most successful fundraising emails that have been written in the past, right? You know, and then merging that with sort of the known interest of a constituent to sort of, you know, create a message faster, maybe more direct and maybe more effective. So, you know, I think there are some things like that. I think there are definitely some ways that it's being used in data crunching, in message development. in translation of materials into other languages where, you might have somebody who's campaigning in a very diverse community and they would like to have their campaign materials and, the 15 languages that are spoken, but now they can do that more easily. So I think there are many positive potentials here for this space to do good and maybe even to act against some of the negatives in some ways, but I can't speak to the infrastructure piece as much.
Gary?
Yeah, and I absolutely agree. I mean, because I'm not smart enough to fully unpack and understand the technology behind all artificial intelligence, which, we do speak about it as some monolithic technology, which it's not, right? It's very tailored for a lot of things. And I dumb it down for myself to just, again, say it's a computational accelerant for a lot of actions and activities that you would already be doing or seeking to do, right? So I think you heard a little bit about this on the prior panel. Where can you improve your current processes, right? Gain efficiencies, et cetera. So if you think in the cybersecurity side of the house, from an internal security perspective, defensive perspective, I think there's, it's already being demonstrated where it can, at speed and scale that is just not replicable by humans, identify threats, anomalies, et cetera, mitigate those threats in your systems. That's a contributor if we have concerns about the security of election, systems and infrastructure. We heard discussion earlier about for every measure, there's a countermeasure, right, that comes. And so the deep fakes, all this stuff, there's a lot of interesting work. I've seen stuff from a few companies, and then there's the open space, but of deep fake identification technology. And so, yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of different ways that it can be brought to bear to enhance the things we need to do for security of elections, for the integrity of the processes. And those are great points that Michael made as well. Like elections are ultimately about some form of suasion, right? Either persuasion or dissuasion, and bringing people to your side. And there are ways to do that and broaden the reach of the positives of that, the inbound type of information to reach communities and pockets of people that maybe wouldn't be reachable before through use of this technology.
Great. And so then picking up on that, when we talk about influence operations, inevitably it comes down to motives. So different entities have different reasons for attempting to influence elections, in this case, elections one way or the other. Can you talk a little bit about, either of you, if you think motive has any bearing on targets, audiences being targeted, and how they might be targeted, and what, if anything, could be done to help the American public be more savvy around attempts to influence them in that way?
Well, I'd say you've touched on, I think, a really fascinating question. And here's, I warned you the other day, I might have to geek out about the law a little bit, but when we get into the discussions about disinformation, and you just cannot avoid the challenges of the First Amendment and free expression, and rightfully so. There's an interesting sort of sliver in the overall architecture of our First Amendment law. Anonymity is generally considered a component of free expression. Like, in order to be a communicant and have the safe space to communicate, at times people need to be able to communicate anonymously. The problem with that is, if I can't engage with the provenance of information, that's a net negative on my right to receive information, right? And I don't think we have fully figured out that issue and that balance, and especially when you take it from the perspective of, and this kind of your motive point, if I know that Vladimir Putin is trying to sway me one way or the other, I know exactly how much time and weight and effort I'm going to give to Vlad, right? But if I am duped into believing it is an affinity group down the street or whatever, I'm engaging with that information in a very different way. And so, that, I think the anonymity piece is something that's going to be very difficult for us to work our way through. but it's an important piece of the equation because yes, I want to know the motivation of somebody who's trying to sway me to do something or not do something.
Yeah, I would just add, I think it really is important to know the motivation of the bad actors because their motivation is how they come to us, right? It's like it's how they operationalize what they're trying to do. And I think at the end, at the consumer level, you need to understand that motivation because when you see content, right, and it's making you angry, right, you have to decide, is somebody trying to divide us? Is somebody trying to get me to do something I wouldn't normally do or believe something I wouldn't believe or be so mad at someone else that I wouldn't, that maybe I'm so mad at everybody that I wouldn't even go vote at all, right? Like we are the absorber of the information. And I mean, look, it's hard. Let's be honest. We live in an influencing society. People are trying to influence us all day long, to buy dish soap, right? To watch something on TV, to vote for a candidate, right? That influences what happens around us all the time. We have to have our radar up all the time. We have to be paying attention. And I really encourage people to just check your emotional response, right? How are you responding to the content? To Gary's point, it's really hard to know the source. And even if it's anonymous, it's also hard to notice if it's been impersonated. Like, is it really the person who's saying, that's like another problem we have now. So you have to check your own response to the material that's coming to you to make sure that you believe that your response is being based on valid information, right? Like, yeah, I'm angry at that because it's really true, right? Or I'm just angry at that because it's making me angry.
So that, Michael, you're in the space of protecting, or providing opportunities for protection to candidates and campaigns. Is there a calculus that you use in helping candidates and campaigns? Is there a strategy you use to help them understand the importance of protecting themselves? And do you think that's in looking at motives and motivations of known bad actors, are there some candidates that might have a reason to be more concerned than others?
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, most people consider anybody in the political sector, whether they're on a campaign, whether they work in government, whether they work in a political organization, to be high risk computer users, generally higher than, someone who just, buys stuff online and does banking, right? Because they are targeted by all these bad actors. I think it's important that people understand the motivations to some degree, that there are cyber criminals in this space stealing money. We've seen a lot of money stolen from campaigns, right? Everybody's worried about influence, but like people are just straight out stealing money, from campaigns, right? And, then there's espionage taking place. So, those are, everybody also talks about like interference and trying to influence, but some people are just trying to get in and learn, right? So there's espionage being taken place. So candidates have to put themselves and campaigns, like, where do we sit in all this space, right? If I'm in a leadership position, am I at higher risk because people might be trying to get to me on my campaign side, maybe to try to get to the official side because I sit on a committee that's very important, or I'm going to be making decisions about this country that's trying to get into my system. So they have to make those determinations. They have to make the risk may be raised because they're in a campaign that's in the balance of power, right? We have a handful of campaigns that will determine who runs the Senate, whose power holds power in the Senate, who holds power in the House. If you're in one of those blocks of campaigns, you are going to be a focus of everybody's attention. The bad actors, right? The hacktivists, probably the cyber criminals, because they'll be like, well, there can be more money there, right? So, so you need to understand those motivations, and you need to understand where you sit. It's risk management, what are my risks in this space, and are they different than anybody else's? And we help people think that through.
Well, I think if I could, it's also what risk do I present, right? Because of the risk profile I have, and there's we talk about responsibility of everyone in this ecosystem. There are players who, if they are contributing because of lack of good security practices and everything else, that's just a lack of responsibility.
That's great. Well, we are close to the end of our time. I want to end with just a quick, off the top of your head, if you were able to look forward to November of this year, election is over, what would the headline be regarding election security for 2024?
Go ahead, Michael.
So can I give my optimistic one as opposed to, is that okay? My optimistic one would be that the bark of AI was bigger than its bite. That's what I'm hoping we see a little bit, like, you know, that the hype, we didn't live up to the hype.
Great. Gary?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I hope the headlines are, you know, the elections were safe, secure, and you know, produced the correct results, and we can move on as a nation. We'll see.
Great. Thank you both. Suzanne?
Deborah, thank you so much. Very much enjoyed the conversation, especially, you know, just the continuity of all of these issues throughout the day today. I think it's been really a fantastic learning experience. And again, kind of gives us different perspectives as we have the election 5 months off now. So I really want to thank you all for being here. Deborah, an excellent job moderating as always. Michael, Kaiser, Gary, Horn, thanks so much for taking part in this today.
Thank you.